It's summertime, which means it's really hot. So if you really want to have some good fishing in this calm weather, then you better get up early to beat the heat. Whether you're an offshore or an inshore angler, don't forget to sharpen your hooks, re-spool your reels with some fresh line, because it's time to go fishing here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Thanks for staying hooked on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. This is Captain Rick Murphy and I am Brie Gabrielle, here to bring you your back-to-school fishing reports and captains from around this great state. Rick, welcome back to reality. We missed you around these parts.
Well, Brie, you know what? I had some business to go do.
Yes, you did.
Funny business, actually. We went over to the eastern side of the Bahamas, had the best time. The fam took two 39-foot contenders and we toured the eastern Bahamas, had the best time.
Swimming
actually
with
even
pigs
got
and
in
stuff.
the water, swam with the pigs, actually jumped through Thunderbolt, which is where one of the 007 in the 60s
Hey, I'm
was
proud
filmed.
of you. I'm proud of you.
40
He got in the
foot.
water.
Forgot to cross my legs. You can only imagine how that hurt for a while.
Oh no, I can't. I've never done it. But that's great. Family vacations, that's what summertime's all about.
Yep.
All right, well, let's say hi to Dave at the CCA Workbench. Dave, are we prepped for some rigs and techniques today?
Yes, yep, we're going to revisit the dropper rig, you know, the drop shot.
Rig.
Yep,
Very
drop
nice.
shot.
The drop shot.
Yep, it's,
Cool.
you know, summertime, so it's hot in the basket out in the middle. This is a good way to get them.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear more about it. All right, the Garmin Lower Coast region is first out of the gate, so let's say hi to Captain Chad Kinney to get us started. Hey, Chad.
Hey, everything's good. The weather's looking really, really great. We got still half of August to go here, but September is my favorite month coming up, so we'll be in a whole bunch of different pelagics by then and some other stuff. But starting out here with the inshore stuff, out of South Padre Island, 3 Islands has been pretty good for redfish on there. There's been some good action up there. If the days are a little bit windier, which we've had some windy days, but normally it's calmer, but if you get some windier days, use a popping cork rig with a Fish Bites Fight Club, like using a chartreuse with a paddle tail on that, and adjust your cork to the level on there. If it's dirty water, pop it really hard like that, and you'll get some good action on that stuff like that. And with the water clears up, stuff like that, and cleans up, move over to a saltwater assassin sea shad, rig that with an 1/8-ounce jig head, and go ahead and cast that through the, for the sand pockets and in your grass bed areas and stuff like that. Also look for mullet moving and flipping and stuff like that, or fish moving in and out of the grass. Those redfish, if you slow down, they'll hide in that grass bed like that, and they do that, they ambush the bait out in the potholes. So the potholes, of course, are the green areas. The dark stuff is grass beds. So when you are fishing that stuff, go ahead and cast on the edge of those potholes right along the grass like that, and you'll end up having a lot better luck and action on that stuff like that. Another trick that I do is if you guys are out there fishing and you're bringing in your reel, and that fish is coming up and following, you just keep some nosing off like that. Speed up your retrieve a lot, and sometimes when you speed up your retrieve, you'll get them to have more of an impact bite, and they'll hit some better luck on that. Moving on to trout fishing, it's been good also out South Padre. Heading to like Holly Beach, a good area. Long bar's been really, really good. Free line and live croaker's working really good. This time of year, we start moving over to like a 7/0 tail hook. We go from the 5 to the 7. Reason being, the bait starts getting a little bit bigger. It'll help keep that bait down also on the drop-offs, fish drop-offs and guts. Also try the saltwater assassin sea shads, working really good on that stuff too in the drop-offs, weed beds. Same thing, look for those guts, power pull down, fishy edges, do a little slower retrieve than you would in the flats, and bounce that through the grass areas like that, and you'll have a good strike on that. With the calmer mornings, I like going to a mirror lure, top water, bone colors working really, really well. Go that real early on that, and then if you get an area where your surface grass is kind of bugging you and stuff like that and getting hooked up and it's not staying as clean, go ahead and switch those treble hooks out to a single hook rig, and it'll help you keep the bait a little bit cleaner, get some more action there. But got a picture of a nice trout here, Pearson Prosick, one of our sponsors there. Prosick, he was down here fishing. He got that's his personal best, I believe.
Wow, that's a nice fish, man.
This has a good solid one. Good guys. They're good fishermen offshore and inshore. So moving to offshores, state water snapper season. We mentioned it last week, but I got a lot of calls coming in. They think it's closed. State water is open. So remember what that means. You can go from 9 nautical miles from the beach. So you can run 20 miles north, south, anything else like that. As long as you stay within the 9 nautical miles, you're in the state. So you get 4 per person, 15-inch minimum, and it works. It's really good fishing this time of year. So also look for structure, hard bottom, little coral, CCA reefs and stuff like that are out there. But the best way in the summertime, usually I drift for these fish, but right now when the water's starting to get bluer, go ahead and anchor up. And that way you can start a chum line, get the fish coming up from off the bottom. So start chumming and stuff like that, and let the fish get into the middle of the water column. And you can start trying jigging or free lining. Use some fresh baits such as squid or your spot croakers and stuff like that. And also, if you got a live well and stuff like that, get a live croaker free line, and those fish will just go nuts all over it. So got a picture here of one of my clients from last week. He's got an 18-pound snapper, and that's a state water snapper. You can see the bigger ones. There's some smaller ones in the back, but that's a stud for a state water snapper.
That is a stud.
So,
all right.
So moving into kingfish. Kingfish are thick out there right now. They're all over the lower coast. The water's warming up, and they're ranging from the beachfront all the way up to 200 to 300 feet. I've seen them out there deeper. Controlling the mirror lure, 25-foot diver, working really, really well. Make sure you, of course, use that with a haywire twist and a wire rig on that, stuff like that. Fish the reefs, rigs, bait balls, stuff like that. And if you're anchoring on a structure, the best way to do it then is start a chum line, get some shiners, pogies, or anything else like that. Start letting it go out, get a big slick going out like that, and then go ahead and put a 3-hook wire rig on and maybe a stinger hook on the back like that and get a ribbon fish and lay it out there. If you're pinning that ribbon fish on, make sure you just kind of lay it flat on your Yeti cooler like that to where it's not all bent up, and so it lays flat and floats out there and drifts really well. So you can either free line them like that out their back or put them on a balloon and get them way back out through the slick. And I think the farther you get back, the better off you are on those bigger fish. And another thing, keep your drag a little bit looser. These fish hit so fast they'll skyrocket out of the water, or they'll hit it going extremely fast. They'll probably put 10 pounds of drag or less even on these things at your strike. So when they hit it, it doesn't rip out. They got real soft skin, so don't let it rip out of there. And then when you're also fighting the fish, play them out, let them run, do their deal, get them to the boat. You don't want to pull the hooks on them, especially if you're tournament fishing and stuff like that. So I got a picture here of a ladies kingfish tournament we just did. Got Kyra Hudson and Erica Kinney there, and they got first place overall and grand champ on that one.
Well, congratulations, man. You got room on that boat for me and Brie next year?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I like the quick answer.
Hard yes.
Let me think about it. Oh, yeah.
That's a hard yes.
All right,
we'll be
thank
there.
you so much, Chad. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Garmin Lower Coast region. He says inshore, out of South Padre Island, there's been some good redfish action around the 3 islands. Look for the trout around Holy Beach and Long Bar. And then offshore, state water snapper fishing has been good out of the lower coast. Kingfish are abundant around the shallow shrimp boats and structure from 60 to 130 feet of water.
All right, our Project Smokehouse Lower Fresh region has the bite going on in Choke Canyon, Fayette County, Lake Decker, and Lake Bastrop, and Stillhouse Hollow. So, Matt, let's hear it. You got a lot to get through.
Yeah, let's get this rolling. Going to start off talking about bass, which I do nearly every week. We'll start at Choke Canyon Lake. Mike Bates, a good friend of mine that guides there, sent me this, and he says the water level's dropping fairly quickly, which is, has caused the hydrilla to top out. There's mats everywhere with it growing fast in the summer and the water dropping. It's all topped out. Early in the morning, he's catching them on top waters and half-ounce spinnerbaits in shad color. Also, keep your eye open throughout the day for the shad to be flickering on the inside of that grass line. If you see that, you can still catch them on top even on up in the day. He caught a really big one at 2:30 the other day, right in the bright, hot, 100-degree sun. Most of the best midday bite is on a Texas rig soft plastic on the outside of the hydrilla, where it forms a point or where a creek channel bends up against it and makes a sharp edge. Punching through the mats gets you a big weight in a 4-inch creature-style soft plastic and watermelon or green pumpkin. Punch that through the thickest mat you can find. Those fish get under there and for the shade. There'll be a void area under there. Pitch it through, let it fall, pump it up and down 2 or 3 times, and pick it up and flip it again. That's a great way to catch a big fish. Moving on over to Fayette County. It's been really good this week. Mainly early and late have been the best times. Crankbaits, drop shots, and Carolina rigs along the riprap on the dam have been best. The water's got an algae bloom right now, so brighter colors have been working better. So, that darker water, you need to brighten your colors up where they can see it a little bit. Moving on over to Lake Decker. Want to start there in the discharge early in the morning with small moving baits. You can also catch some on 4-inch soft plastics. We'll get you some bites. keep your eye open for those schooling activity. They're chasing shad, but they're only doing it in those little short bursts. You need to get your bait in there real quick, throw a little swim bait or top water, and if you get it in there quick enough, you'll catch you some. And surprisingly, some of those fish are up to 6 pounds, so they're not just little schoolies. After that, you want to move further outside of the discharge and throw a Carolina rig, either with a fluke or a trick worm on it, and catch some fish doing that on the drop-offs there close to the discharge. But midday, out on the main lake, they're schooling all over the main lake, so move out. Keep your eye open for that surface activity. Get you a small swim bait, let it fall through them, and they'll load up on it as it's just falling through. Lake bass drop, again, it's schooling fish. What you want to do, you want to be at the dam at daylight. A lot of schooling activity there early in the morning. Throw a belly-weighted small swim bait, catching a bunch of fish there. Brian Cotter with Texas Hogs said he caught 60-plus fish the other morning out of those schools there. A little later, you want to work the outside edge of the grass lines with a trick worm and watermelon red or watermelon candy. One thing that's kind of sounds wrong, but it works a lot in the summer, is take you a rivet-type frog later in the day, get inside the grass line and close to the reeds, and that's a good way to catch a big fish. The big fish are hiding under the shade of that grass up there. Moving to Stillhouse Hollow. Again, there's some school fish there, but most of them are small. You want to chase those with the top waters or the swim baits. It can be fun. But your best chance for a big bite is to get a Texas rig or a Carolina rig out on that deeper grass around the channel bends or the humps in 15 to 25 foot of water. Baby brush hog and watermelon candy is probably the best bait. You can get some of them out there on a deep crank also, getting it down to the top of the hydrilla. Early in the mornings, there's also been some smallmouth activity. That lake is one of the few in Texas that's got good smallmouth. Throw a wake bait on the rock ledges up shallow, the rock banks. That can be a lot of fun to catch you a brown one or a green one. Got me a picture of a bass there with Greg Boyk with Anglers Angle Guide Service there at Fayette County. He had him a fun morning cranking the dam the other morning.
I bet.
Looks
All right,
happy.
what else you got for us? Some white bass and hybrids?
All right, Lake Somerville for the white bass and hybrids. It slowed down a little bit because the Corps of Engineers closed the spillway. There's no current running. But there's still a pretty good white bass and hybrid bite on the main lake points and humps down toward the dam. Best baits have been slab spoons or chartreuse sexy shad baits are what's producing best. Just use your electronics to find the shad, and the whites and hybrids will be associated with them.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. We appreciate it very much. Guys, don't forget, if you go to prosix.com and you use the code TIFR, you'll actually be able to get a 10% discount throughout your whole order. Let's take a look at the lower fresh hotspots. He says that we're going to go to Lake Bass Drop. Bass are schooling at sunrise at the dam. Throw a belly-weighted small swim bait or top water to load up on them. And then later in the day, you're going to throw a buzz type of frog behind the grass and close to the reeds for the bigger bite. What do you think about that, Bree?
I think you just mentioned Cross-Checks, and I want some teriyaki jerky.
There's some right
Definitely.
over there. I
That's
brought
not
you some.
jerky, but I want to go get me some.
Get you some
All right,
teriyaki something.
we're seeing what the Middle
Come
Coast
on.
region has to offer next. But first, we're back in session with Dave Ferrell at the CCA Workbench, who's schooling us on some rigging and techniquing.
I'm schooling you all right. I don't
you
know.
are.
I might try to tie a Palomar knot on television with this tiny light line in this studio, but then again, I might not. I
But
might
he
have
might.
to do it.
But he might. So stick around, and we'll find out.
It sounds like he's trying to decide what he's doing.
Oh, I can't see. I can't see.
And there's the truth.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 four-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron.
If you're not a member of Coastal Conservation Association, you need to be. CCA fights on a national and state level for our fishing rights so that our children and grandchildren will have fish to catch today and in the future. CCA, through their habitat programs, create oyster and artificial reefs, as well as many other habitat programs. CCA also each year releases millions of trout, redfish, and flounder, so join myself, Brie, and Dave and become a member of CCA now. Well, it's time to see if Dave can see the fishing line here at the CCA workbench, right, Dave?
I decided I'm going to use the big line. I can't see, you know. We're talking about the drop shot rig, and you know, we're trying to. It's not an old rig, but it's not a brand new rig. So it's probably been around for like 10 years or so. 2003 or something like that is when I first started hearing about it. It may have been around before that a little bit, but what's
still a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it is. But still, what I like about them is they're very versatile. And a lot of guys don't like to use them because they've got the idea that it's a finesse rig, and that's how it really started. You know, what this rig was made for is when bass are really starting to get hammered, they go down in size to smaller things, and this rig is actually with the weight way down below it, and then the bait above the weight.
Right.
And what you're trying to do.
The weight is on the bottom.
Correct. And it's usually a smaller bait, some kind of either a tiny piece of a worm, 4 to 6 inches, or a shad bait, something like that, that can wiggle a lot. It's always a plastic bait, and usually on a smaller hook, a 1/0, a 2/0, something like that. And it was made to try to get a bite when you couldn't get a bite out of anything else. And that's what some guys think that's the only time to use it, but that's really not. It's not the only time to use it. You can use these things when in the summertime, especially now when it gets real hot and the bass will go deep, or they'll get up into that real deep cover, and guys will start punching with just regular punching stuff. But you can do a power drop shot with a big heavier weight, like a 3/4 or a 1/2 ounce weight, and you know, a bigger 5/0 hook with a big worm on it, and you can still punch with these too. You know, especially if you rig this Texas style with the hook not protruding, so it's weedless. You know, and you can get down in there and use these things in really shallow water around cover, and you have to go up in size, obviously, with your line from, 4 to 8, which is your regular drop shot stuff, to, up to 12, 15, or 17 pound test line.
Right.
When you're around wood or, docks and stuff, because this technique with the way that the bait is suspended above the weight, and you can jiggle the bait, and that's what you're trying to do when you're working this, is you're trying to jiggle the bait without moving the weight. The weight goes down to the bottom, and it'll sit on the bottom.
You're playing with the slack.
Correct. You want this thing to maybe drop and then come back up, and you can move the weight a little bit, but that's the thing, is you're wanting that thing to just quiver like that. And you're going to use a rod that you're going to want to have. You want to have a pretty light tip, a noodly type of rod, especially when you're using that really light line and the finesse situation. You're going to use a really fast action rod with a really light noodly tip that can jiggle.
Right.
Make that little bait jiggle and dance, so, whether it's a shad type bait like that, or
would you want a 6.5 or a 7 foot length?
It depends. If you're in deep water, like now in the summertime, but all the bass are in deep water up around shad, and this thing shines in those situations because you can see the school of bass on your sounder, and you get right up on top of them, and you can drop it right down to their level.
Right.
And if you're using that kind of stuff, you don't really have to have a really long rod for casting. You can get away with using a shorter rod, even a bait caster.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to use a spinning rod. A lot of times you'll be using a spinning rod when you're using this light stuff and doing this finesse work. But when you're trying to use it in that deeper water, you don't have to, and you can use up to bigger.
So are you going to show us how to do
Well,
this with
the Palomar
string?
knot, the Palomar knot is the key, because you want the bait to be perpendicular. You want the hook to be perpendicular to the line, and the Palomar knot does that. And especially if you're using a worm or something like that, you want to have it the same way so that it is perpendicular as well. Actually, I got it upside down.
Right.
But see how that little wacky, you know, it's perpendicular.
Yeah.
And the
So how are we
Palomar,
going to tie it on there? You better hurry.
you got to use a Palomar knot. You want to go straight down through.
You're going to go through.
Yep, and then you're going to come back
to
through.
that camera, Dave.
You're going to come back through. Quit turning it. You're going to come back through.
Oh yeah, coming back through. We coming back through.
Coming back through.
Okay.
All right. And seeing how this tag end is going to be your length.
Right.
You want it to be a long tag end. You're
Yeah.
just going to have that loop through the eye of the hook.
Yeah.
You're going to wrap those two pieces just one time around.
Right.
And then you're going to put the hook through that loop. And it's nice because it bends. But yeah, and then you're going to tighten all of them down at once.
Okay. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's really easy. It's just the loop that goes through, and then well, I'm not going to tighten it down because I
And
did
guys
it
can
early.
Google how to do this.
Correct.
Online.
And then once you get the tag end out, you straight back down through, and that makes it do the perperpendicular thing. I know
Makes it stick out.
Correct.
I got it.
I knew I wouldn't be able to
That
do
was
it.
some pretty finessing over there, I have to say. It's good. All right, it's hot and happening in the Middle Coast region, and our Captain Bink Grimes has what you're going to need inshore and offshore to get that hot bite. Talk to us, Bink.
It is hot. There's a definite difference between 95 and 100 degrees. It's been about 107 to 8 days. We're expecting 2 more. The century mark has been the norm lately. It's been a get on the water early and get off early approach, so not to, subject victims to the heat-related illnesses. The top water bite's been outstanding just about anywhere for those wading during the first 2 hours of daylight. That's not to say speckled trout won't crush the top water when the sun comes up, but most anglers believe that myth, and probably from the bass fishing background, and they usually take those plugs off after daylight and work a soft plastic when the sun gets bright enough to wear polarized shades. Lots of those big trout have been caught and released last week in East Matagorda Bay while wading and drifting. We've had kind of southwest winds the last 6 to 7 days, but man, we're expecting an easterly flow this weekend, and that'll bring our tides back and green the bay back up in East Bay, and we really, really look forward to that. The early topwater bite has been a lot to do with the strong incoming tides around Port O'Connor and Pascoval. It generates a lot of flood tides in West Matagorda Bay and Espiritu Santo Bay, and brings a lot of those tide-running trout in from the surf. Guy Lynn Smith said he caught limits of fish in East Espiritu Santo Bay on grass flats on the incoming tide. All those fish were over 2 pounds, and many were in the 4 to 5 pound range, pushing 24 inches. He said chicken on a chain bass assassins were best, and he's been throwing she-dogs and mirror softings as well. Around Palacios, those deep reefs around the Sucking Shrimp Boat and Coon Islands produce trout on live shrimp under Pompacourt. Half Moon Reef has been kind of tough to fish with the west winds, but I'm telling you, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week, it is going to be on fire. Don't forget about Turtle Bay and Karankawa Bays. Waders have scored there on live finfish and topwaters on the shallow reef. The surf kind of roughed up the last few days, but we're expecting seas 1 to 2 foot the next 3 to 4 days, and green tides, and man, that just spells success. The bite on the beach has been tougher on artificials, but better on mullet and croakers. But man, we've been catching them pretty good on she-dogs and she-pups early in the morning. The only thing, the sharks have been bad when the water gets really, really clear. So be prepared. Rockport anglers continue to target sand and grass humps with small topwaters and soft plastic. And then the nearby Port Aransas jetty's been holding trout on live shrimp. Photo there at the daddy-daughter outing produced lots of bent rods. People are trying to get one more fishing trip before school begins. Inshore triple tail, light winds this week is going to give us a chance to get back out in West Bay. Most of August has been this way.
to chase these triple tails. They're on the buoys, they're on the channel markers along the ICW near Palacios, running all the way to Port O'Connor. Heck, there was when we pulled up to my lodge this weekend to pick up customers at 6:30 in the morning, there was a triple tail right beside my pier, so that was pretty cool. A little bitty one, but it was pretty cool. There's been fish to 25 pounds lately. Many of those triple tailers, they're keeping it quiet, and the preferred method is rigging a shrimp under a cork and varying the depth from 2 to 4 foot. It's a long run to get out there, and 20 to 25 miles in the deep reaches of West Matagorda Bay, but it's worth it. A good boat driver's a must to help pull those fish away from the structure. As soon as that fish feels the pressure, it runs to the shade in the structure, and it can wrap that line around, and it's just like a good tetherball player. Lots of triple tail on the offshore, right offshore, on those weed lines. The same thing, live shrimp's getting it done. Anything out there that's floating probably has a triple tail on it. We'll go offshore. Our kingfish bite has been really, really good in Matagorda. Michael Quebec has said they're all over the place, from the jetty out to the shrimp boats in 200 foot of water. He's been trolling blue runners and X-wraps around shrimp boats. Water temps are about 87 to 88 degrees. Tides are green, and those smaller kick kings have been just off the beach. Some of the pluggers right near the jetties have caught fish up to 20 pounds. It's right about first light. At Freeport, Mike Siegel of Real Thrill Charters, he's catching kingfish in state waters on sardines. He said the larger ones have been found around the Gulf shrimp boats while trolling. Plenty of Spanish mackerel hanging around with those kings. It's hot out there, ladies and gentlemen. There's no other place I'd rather be than the Texas Middle Coast. We're going to drink lots of water. We're going to try to get in the surf and have a good time this weekend.
All right. Well, I'm sure you will, Bink. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Texas hotspots from the Middle Coast region. He says large trout are good while drifting in the middle of East Bay on live shrimp. Triple tails are good on the buoys in West Matagorda Bay on live shrimp. And then the kingfish are good behind those shrimp boats.
Trying to get in one last fishing trip before school starts.
That's
Why
it.
can't you fish on the weekends or after school?
You can.
When it's nice and cool out.
And it's
cool,
nice and
right?
crowded.
95 degrees. All right, summer is the perfect time to plan a fall adventure. So head to fabulous Cabo San Lucas to fish in the 21st annual Los Cabos Billfish Tournament, October 13th through the 17th. Cabo San Lucas, Mexico hosts some of the most prestigious and richest billfish tournaments in the world. And the Los Cabos Billfish kicks off the tournament season with a $750,000 purse up for grabs. Anglers and crews get to fish in a spectacular setting where the harsh desert meets the marlin-rich waters of the Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Cortez. This 3-day tourney awards a wide variety of prizes and many ways to win, including tuna, dolphin, and wahoo categories. So you don't have to be a master bill fisherman to take home a bit of cash. You still have plenty of time to sign up and secure your spot in a good boat from the affordable Los Cabos fleet. If you want to fish in the most incredible fishing destinations on earth and have a chance to win some money in the process, visit LosCabosTournaments.com and reserve your spot today. That is a no-brainer for me. And it should be for you too. All right, look alive, Texans. We're getting your Star Tryon Middle Fresh and Fish Bites Upper Coast region captains on the line at the moment. But before we take a short break, we want to remind you that if you'd like to catch up with our crew and everything fishing in Texas, make sure to visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch us on YouTube, and check us out on Instagram. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Project Smokehouse, a link above.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO Offshore.
as close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Today's power pole tip of the week is about, does the power pole add a lot of weight to the transom of the boat? And simply, guys, it doesn't. Now we're talking about a bracket that weighs anywhere between 5 and 7 pounds, and depending on the model that you get, our micro is 7 with the blade, 10-foot blade, being 27 pounds. So simply, we're not gonna add a lot of weight. You're not gonna change the draft of the boat. You're not gonna have to re-prop your boat. And more importantly, the pumps have been mounted in the floor so that they're out of the way and not on the transom. So many times when we add weight to the boat, it affects the performance, and that's not gonna happen by adding 2 power poles. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can either go online to powerpole.com or you can go down to your local dealer. And that's today's power pole tip of the week.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
What do Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, Richland Chambers, and Lake Livingston have in common in the Star Charm Middle Fresh region?
Maybe our guide?
Well, outstanding reports from your guide, Matt Losher, of course. So, Matt, give us the news. You're good, man. How'd you know?
I read it right there on the teleprompter.
Hi, Matt.
I cheated.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Yeah, it's smoking hot over here in the Middle Fresh on the heat index and on the fishing. It's been really good this week. As I normally do, I'm going to start out with my favorite fish, the largemouth bass. I'm going to talk about Toledo Bend first because we've had some big changes taking place over here, and it's really helping our bite. Our lake has been dropping really fast. The lake level is down almost 6 feet from full pool level, but I like it. And, a lot of folks are thinking this is a bad thing, but I just want to make sure everybody out there knows that this is a really good thing for the long-term health of the fishery. These man-made reservoirs, they need to follow a natural cycle going down every now and then to let Mother Nature kind of run her course. It allows for the fresh growth along the shoreline, which is great for the small fish to grow up in. So long term, it's really good for your fish numbers. And in the short term, it really helps the bite right now because, it's hot out there. The bite's not all that great this time of the year, but it concentrates the fish so much that they bite a little better. So just stay positive with it, and you'll find some great fishing right now. I've been catching most of my fish here on wood cover on the edge of the creek channel. The depth they're in really varies a lot. I'm catching some as shallow as a foot deep, and I'm catching them all the way out to 20 foot. But the key pattern is that there's always a deeper drop-off or channel nearby, and they're hanging tight to that wood because it's hot, and they're hanging in the shade of those trees. And wherever they're falling, where that water is falling, it sucks them down to those ledges. So the fish are sitting right on the edge of those edges, on those ledges, drop-off. The best bait for me lately around those stumps has been a green pumpkin crawfish style bait, like the Bass Assassin skunk ape. They're really choking that bait right now. It's been great. I'm throwing it on a Texas rig with a 3/16 ounce weight. And I've also been catching a few fish early in the morning on a topwater popper in some of those shallower areas around those stumps. I've got a photo to throw up here for you guys of Mr. Mike Nycan with one of those big, long, skinny summertime bass. Not a super heavy one, but just a big, pretty fish nonetheless. Now I'm going to jump over to Sam Rayburn right down the road. It's been experiencing a little bit of a tougher bite this week, but there have been some real big stringers caught lately on a frog. Look for places where there's hay grass hanging over the deeper water. If you can find where a creek channel or a deep ditch kind of swings up toward the bank and you got some hay grass there, that's a good area to fish. There's also been some fish schooling outside the edge of the hay grass from about 5 all the way out to about 20 feet deep. The Bass Assassin Vapor Shad, rigged weightless, is a really good way to catch them when they're schooling like that. Green pumpkin's really good when the sun's shining. White is really good kind of on the cloudier days. Just throw it where they were blowing up and let it slowly sink down like a dying bait fish, and they'll jump all over it. Then over on Richland Chambers, Mr. Thurman Selman says the bite's a little tougher up there as well. He has been catching some fish early in the morning, especially by casting creature baits right up to the edge of the reeds. They're really tight to the reeds. And he did mention that some anglers have been having better luck at night kind of trying to beat that heat. And after dark, they're catching those fish on topwater baits in really shallow water as well. Now, the white bass this week, they seem to still be biting really well on Lake Livingston. I'm seeing reports of people loading the boat with those tasty fish down there. Spoons are the best bait for catching them. And early in the morning and late evening seems to be the best time to go after them. On Toledo Bend, you can also catch some white bass, really good as well. But it's mostly a late evening or even an overnight time bite. I've talked to some friends recently that report catching tons of them around the lighted docks at night on crankbaits. So just look for those docks that have the lights running all night, and the white bass will probably be there, especially if it's close to the river channel. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the crappie real quick on Toledo Bend. They've been biting pretty well also. The lower water level has pulled a lot of new fish out to the deeper timbers where we've been catching them all summer. So a lot of new fish have pulled off of those flats and started getting on those places. The only downside to this is that there are a ton of small fish on these deep creeks right now that have been sucked out of those flats and out of that shallower water, and now they're on these deeper spots. So you do have to weed through a lot of fish, but the bigger fish are still around, and the high numbers make for great action. So there's a lot of catching going on. And to finish out here, I got a photo for you of a smiling young man named Wyatt with a big crappie he caught with me this week.
All right, thank you. Great report from the Star Tryon Middle Fresh region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at those hot spots. He says that Toledo Bend is low, but the largemouth bass fishing is good along the channels and the drop-offs. At Sam Rayburn, the frogs are the ticket on Richland Chambers. The night bite is best using topwater baits, and then white bass are chasing spoons and crankbaits on Lake Livingston and Toledo Bend. And the crappie are stacked up on the deeper timber in Toledo Bend, and they're biting minnows. What do you think about that? Minnows.
Nothing better than a smiling kid holding a fish.
No,
I
you're
swear.
absolutely right.
There's nothing better. All right, if you want big fish this weekend, the Fish Bites Upper Coast region has them, and Captain Carl Weston is on the line to tell you how to get them. Tell us our options, Carl.
Well, the redfish bite in Sabine Lake has been really hot lately. And on these windy days we're having, this is a good place to fish. There are a lot of areas you can hide from the wind depending on the direction. Some of these areas around Sabine Pass in the intercoastal, we've been throwing popping corks with a 4-inch bass and shrimp. Some crankbaits like the Mirror or Mirrodine or spinnerbaits. They've been really hot. On the north end of the lake, around the river, Hickory Cove and Sabine River, you can find some protected areas as well. And also fishing the rocks in the upper Galveston Bay around San Jacinto has been good, throwing shallow water spinning crankbait and bass and shrimp. So, with this wind coming up and down, trying to give you guys a little idea of where you can go hide from it. And here we have a picture of Mr. Nelson with a nice slot redfish.
Nice. He's got his straw hat on to keep that heat off of him. All right, what else you got, bub?
Let's talk about a little bit of trout. Trout fishing has been good in East Bay, drifting the reefs on Pepper, Hannah, and Deep Reef. Throwing soft plastics like the Fish Bites Fight Club paddle tail on an 1/8-ounce jig head. These fish are still high in the water column. So throw it out, and as soon as it hits the water, burn it back to you quickly. As I mentioned last week, your bait needs to stay up high where the shad are in that area right now. And in West Bay, there's been some good catches coming in the middle of the bay over oyster shells. Fish around the gas wells in the middle of Trinity Bay has also been producing some really good catches in the past week or so. So moving on to offshore, guys. We're going to talk about a little bit of ling, or cobia, as you know, in Florida. The ling bite has been a little tough this year. It's been strange. One week we'll catch on every charter, and the next week we'll go and not see a fish. They've turned into like ghosts some weeks. And now in the past 2 weeks, we have found some good fish on the shrimp boats. And last week in the box tournament, we saw quite a few fish weighed in over 40 pounds, and I saw one in the 60-pound range. Now, when you're running offshore and you're coming across the current breaks and the grass mats we're seeing now, try to spend a little more time drifting some baits on these areas, like free line of cigar minnow or live piggy, because with the removal of so many oil platforms here in Texas, you're going to have to get a little more creative when targeting these fish. It's not as easy as it once was. And here we have a picture today of Trisha with a nice sling.
Nice. All right.
Yum.
One more species to go. Captain Carl, what do you got?
Well, let's talk about kingfish. Kingfish, now, as I touched on in our Ling report, the kingfish bite has been just as on and off from day to day. Our kings here in the upper coast seem to arrive here later than they have the past few years. The big fish have been spotty at best, and it holds true that one day the bite's crazy hot, and the next day you have to grind it out just to fill your box. But when the bite is on, bump throwing live or dead bait over bottom structure has been the ticket. Also, you can try a slow drift. It's been working well, and you can cover a little better area drifting, and you can put out a few more lines and won't get tangled as easy. Just remember, the more lines you get out, the greater chance you do have of getting wrapped up, so be careful with that. And we have a picture here from last week of Mr. Jose with a nice kingfish.
That's a nice one. All right, Bub, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the MirrOlure hotspots from the fish bite region. Inshore, he says redfish in Sabine Pass, the intercoastal of Sabine, and the rocks in Galveston Bay. Throwing popping corks with a 4-inch Bass Assassin shrimp, maybe crankbaits like a MirrOlure Mirrodine, and spinnerbaits are working for those red dogs. And then offshore, laying on the shrimp boats and current breaks with grass mats. Now, drift cigar minnows or live piggy perch on a free line.
Totally off topic. You're not a fan of my Army Green nail polish, are you?
I thought it was split pea soup green.
Oh, well, it's Army Green. Okay, anglers and hunters, or Hunter
Like,
Green.
what the hell
CCA wants to remind you that it's time to renew your fishing and hunting licenses. Okay, that's enough. There will be some new fishing rules and regulations going into effect soon that will affect coastal anglers, so be sure to read all the details in your outdoor annual and go to your favorite outdoor retail store to grab your new license for the 2019-2020 seasons.
There you go.
That's crazy, 2020. All right, our Yeti Upper Fresh Region Captain is on standby with your weekend report, but Dave Ferrell is on standby first with some new products.
This thing's awesome.
He's just showing off.
I wish I had something to fillet.
Oh, you do?
We could, hey,
I might fillet the beef stick in a minute.
Wait, this is perfect. That's not a knife. This is a knife.
This is a knife.
I got it.
There you go.
All right, we'll be back.
I thought you
with
could trim her hair.
that. No hair trimming here.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yeti, built for the wild. Ameritrail, load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a MirrOlure. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program, and StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
Oh, there it is.
You can either stay busy fishing or get busy catching. From Texas to Tampa Bay or Key West to the Carolinas and beyond. For nearly 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites. Ask for Fish Bites and Fish Bites Fight Club lures by name or visit fishbites.com.
Over 40 years ago, Mr. Proshek began smoking meat in a little Texas town called Hilgi, combining fresh, grade A ingredients to create a variety of legendary smoked meats. Today, Proshek's Smokehouse is a Texas tradition, and now Proshek's not only satisfies hunger in Texas, but across the country. Visit Prosheks.com and order everything from fresh meats to your choice of jerky. Proshek's meats are made by Prosheks, sold by Prosheks, and can be delivered in as little as a day. Proshek's Smokehouse, a link above.
Well, it looks like here at the CCA workbench that Bubba Blade has gone electric.
The knife, please. Here, I'll let you hold it. Anyway, this is the Bubba Blade electric fillet knife. 110 volt. It's a plug-in. You don't have to worry about recharging it. It's got an 8-foot cord. Comes with 2 different blades. That's the 7-inch E-Flex. That's a flexible blade. It actually, for an electric knife, it's really amazing how that thing flexes. Also, we have a 9-inch, stiff if you're doing something a little bit bigger. They've got a titanium nitride coating on there. Keeps them all, keeps them from getting all corroded and keeps them slick. It's got the nice trigger grip on it. It's nice, you get a good handle on this thing. It's got all little places to put your fingers as well, to get your grip on there.
They come apart so they're easy cleaning.
Correct.
Very smart.
Huge
guys.
holes on the back here so that it gets a lot of air so you can do a lot of fish at once, You don't have to worry about it overheating. It keeps going. Comes with this really nice case,
wow.
place for your blades as well as the knife itself, and the coils up the 8-foot cord that comes with it. Nice heavy duty cord. It won't
Good
won't
job,
fall apart.
Guys.
So
at
get
Bubba
that
Blade.
very nice. When you're using an electric fillet knife, you can really do some damage. I really like these things.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about sharpening them every 5 minutes either.
The fellas to the east of Texas are going to like those.
Exactly.
Louisiana.
All right, we got the R&R tackle. This is the mesh net. What's really cool about this net is not only is it retractable like you've got right there, but it's got a double layer of mesh inside, and it's really soft on the baits. If you're either moving bait or if you're catching trout in the summertime, and they get fatigued, and you don't want to take all their slime off. This really it's a double nylon mesh. So it's really, really soft on the fish. It doesn't hold water, so it drains real slowly out, but it will drain.
They also make this model with the lower part. You can see where the stitching is here with clear plastic.
Right.
So that it will hold water if you want to keep the fish in water while you're removing the
Not only that, when they see the clear, they'll keep going towards it. They don't shy away from the clear.
Really smart stuff.
Yeah, rnrtackle.com. It's like I said, extension handle, and it comes in 3 different sizes: a small, medium, and large. The large goes to 63 inches. So
perfect
you can
for your little technical polling skiff, right,
correct.
Dave?
Yes, for sure. Sure. All right, next we got the Nasty Venting Tool. If you're fishing for bottom fish and you're catching smaller members of the species that you need to release, and if you're in deep water, they're going to blow up a little bit, and you got to vent them to get them back down so that they're going to live. And their swim bladder expands as you lift them up through the water column, and then they can't get back down. But what this does is it allows you to puncture through their side and release that gas from their swim bladder. These are all aluminum housing. They got a brass push pin inside. You can see inside there. It's made out of brass, and it's spring loaded, so you can keep the big bore needle out of harm's way, because you don't want to stick yourself with that thing. It's got, like I said, it's got a great big stainless steel needle. Lets a lot of air out at once, so you don't have to sit there and torture the fish. Just one puncture, and usually it'll empty them out really good.
Squeeze the part that needs to be
Correct.
vented,
Right.
and you hear it coming
RDRL metals at ALDL.com or 813-917-5282. And you can get in touch with those fellas. Real quick there, we've got some CJ's Bait Company. It's a catfish. They make a lot of different stuff, but this is their punch bait for catfish. They're from Oklahoma. They're pretty expert on catfish. Those guys catch a lot of catfish up there. The single, they use instead of using regular fibers, they'll use cattail fibers in there. So you can punch the treble hook in there, and it gets a whole lot of bait on it, and it stays on there with those cattail fibers and won't come off. So you don't have to keep baiting it again and again. It comes in 5 different flavors: shad, monster, crawdad, minnow, and wild hopper. And you can go to cjsbait.com to check out all the punch baits and other kind of cool catfish stuff they got.
You remember when Brie smeared that cupcake in my face?
Yeah, well, we're going to hit her back with some shad punch bait.
That is way beyond payback. I don't even know what. I'm speechless.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
I've got Bob Sandlin, Lake Fork, and Lake Grapevine on the mind, and so does your guide, Johnny Geis. Give us some insight to the weekend, Johnny.
We'll do it. Hey, Rick, Ricky Brie. Hey, old Lake Grapevine white bass, they're biting a little bit. Anglers got to be on the water early over there, though. Got a lot of boat traffic hits in that metroplex. The first couple hours is when the least amount of recreational boat traffic's there, so look for those schooling white bass off the main lake points way up shallow early. Watch for those gray herons or seagulls. They usually are where the activity is. So the sand bass are feeding on the small threadfin shad, and you can catch some on top water popper baits as well. A small whopper flopper or walking bait will work. As soon as the sun gets up, gets above the trees, the whites they're going to be moving out to that deeper water, so they're following the shad. Try to fish the windy side of the lake. That's where you find the most bait and the active fish. On Grapevine, you can sometimes find the schooling activity down by the dam, especially if there's any current moving. Around 8 o'clock, it's time to put on a slab and look for those schools of whites with your electronics. Use a little heavy slab and bounce it off the bottom, and your trigger strike that way. Might as well get off the water around noon, come back late afternoon, and other than that, there'll be boat traffic all the rest of the day. Hey, over at Bob Stanley, that's a little East Texas of Fork here. Lake Bob, East Texas Lake lies in Titus counties, small parts in the Wood County. State Park there covers 640 acres of shoreline and about 10 miles south of Mount Pleasant. Real easy to get to. The campgrounds, they got hookups, covered shelters, fishing piers, and bow ramp. The park has a bank pier fishing. Good place to take the family camping and RVing this weekend. Black bass fishing on Bob Salmon, it doesn't get a lot of fishing pressure about this time of year, so anglers that know the lake are having some pretty good success. Hit those shorelines early with top waters and buzz baits. Cover as much water as possible. First few hours, best place to be there. When your shoreline cover is really good and the grass holds some bigger fish, but you might have to find some deeper a little later, fishing some brush piles around the bridge areas of the lake. Got a mid-lake railroad bridge there. It's always a good spot for spotted bass, for whites, and sometimes a big largemouth there also. Those gates are now open between adjoining Lake Monticello and Bob Salmon, and the fishing are ganging up around the levee and the dam area below the Monticello, and they're producing some good bass also. You won't find a crowded lake during the weekdays, and early mornings are the best on the weekends. Well, back on Lake Fork, these bass are finally starting to become a little more active. It's been tough. Bite's been more than a little tough the past few weeks, but it seems like that the bass are starting to feed more during the daylight hours now. Several guides are having good success on drop shots, using them early in the morning, mid-depth areas, and off the points. Bass are a little shallow earlier, but it doesn't take long for them to move out to that 19 to 25-foot range. Fork has tremendous bait fish population, and while the black bass mainly feed on the threadfin shad, the larger ones still prefer those large gizzard shad and the bluegills. So I'm seeing swarms of small yellow bass and small white bass on the traditional community holes here on Fork, and the bass are feeding on them also. Several good baits are working at this time. You need to have rods rigged up with all of them for the best results here. The shaky heads, the drop shots, probably the best choice, green pumpkin, and all sizes of bass, but the larger 10 to 12-inch Texas rig worms and the 1-ounce football jigs, that's how you're catching the big ones right now. I always try to get my customers on their new personal best on each trip. Did that this week again, so here's a couple of pictures of Conley Killian and his mom, Kelly, and they both caught their personal best on this trip.
Nice.
Those are some nice bass.
Yes, sir, they are.
great.
All right, what else you got for us this week, Johnny?
Just going to close out about the old big white crappie here. It's a sleeper for these giant crappie, and I've got that Garmin working. I'm trying to learn how to catch them. It's possible to get a good box of 1.5 to 2-pound crappie. I'm targeting those crappie on the live scope on pole timber down about 20 to 28 foot using jigs tipped with minnows. Here's a couple pictures of the big crappie I caught this week on Fork, and I am getting better every day, so come go fishing.
So, Johnny, you mentioned the Garmin. Quickly, tell me how it's going. You're using it, and you're actually finding fish underneath docks and on brush piles. So when you're not catching them, what do you think that's all about, just because of the time of year and how hot it is?
Not so much the time of year, Rick. It's more of a timing of the day. So once you get them pegged out, whether it's an early morning bite or midday, I watch that solar tables a lot. You probably do too. And when it's major feeding time, regardless of the time on the clock, I try to be out there. That seems to be what it is. You just got to be there. You're seeing them on the Garmin. When they turn on, you'll be catching fish.
All right, man, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and put that on our new boats as we start to rig some new ones here recently. And let me take a look at the upper fresh hot spots. He says Lake Grapevine, Bob Sandlin, and Lake Fork, the water stain. The average temperature is 86 to 91 degrees. Black bass and hybrid bass are good on a variety of artificials. You can try crankbaits, topwater poppers, Texas rig crawls. And as the day heats up, try that football jig and a creature bait. The crappies are fair, obviously on the minnow.
I'm so glad that it smells more like Prosecco than that catfish bait over here, because that face you were making was pretty, you're not affected by smells that easily.
I don't usually know, but boy, that was some rank stuff.
All right.
I bet it works.
I bet it does work. All right, happy back to school, go fishing. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.